So I did forget one sacrament. This is what happens when you don't make notes. So I was rewatching the first video. I was like, oh, I forgot this. So here we go. I forgot the sacrament of the sick. Okay. So sacraments take us from the beginning to the end of our life. I forgot the end of the life here in my, what I was talking about in the first video. And so this is a sacrament that's misunderstood. The sacrament of the sick. It used to be the sacrament of healing. It used to be called extreme unction. And, back in the day when sacraments were forming, there was a lot of misconception about, what was a misconception? It's just the way they looked at sacraments, right? So in regards to reconciliation, some people waited till the last minute to get this sacrament, before they died, but some people didn't make it because we don't know when we're going to die, right? And then there was this sense of dread when someone was ill, that the priest showed up at the door and it's like, oh, it's the end, because the priest was coming to do the last rites. But what this sacrament has transformed into is called the sacrament of the sick. I've received it. Anyone who perhaps is going into surgery might have received it. It doesn't mean it's the end. Okay. Although it's still, that's when, also a lot of people do receive it when it's end of life, right? Priests regularly go to the hospital. When I took my aunt last summer to the hospital, she was getting a pacemaker and it was really, she was in a really bad situation. I hailed down the priest in the hospital, right? And he came in and he was lovely. And then I asked her if she wanted to go to confession. And then there's this, we as human beings have a hard time with this sacrament, right? Because there's a couple of things. When we were younger, if we had to go into that black box, it was scary. And oh my goodness, we have to own up. And we don't want to openly share our deepest, darkest secrets. We're embarrassed, right? We're flawed and we're not, we don't want to tell people where we messed up. We don't want to tell them what we've been thinking that wasn't healthy. We're ashamed. So we're hesitant. We drag our feet into the confessional, right? And then there's that sense, oh, it's the priest, it's my parish priest, he's going to have a different opinion of me, right? So there's all these things that go in through our minds, right? And so my aunt said no, and I'm like, no, you're going to confession. I'm brutal. I said, I know your secrets. Brought the priest in. I left the room. Anyways, and then she loved it, right? She was just like, she loved the priest. Every time, he was in the hospital, I brought him in, or he would pop in to see her. It brought her comfort. It was a whole different scene, right? Once you release the stuff that you've been dragging along with you in the spirit, right? So it helps you in your healing process, right? So she's home, she's got a pacemaker, But I just kind of laugh at that, where I had to kind of, call the heavy hand there and make her go to confession, right? Anyways, I don't blame her. I too hesitate, right? I got to bring myself up, bring that courage, And there's a couple of things you got to know, and I think Father Mike Schmidt talked about this too. They can't remember everything. Honestly, don't think priests are taking notes and they're going to judge you. They can't judge you because they have their own sins. If that was God sitting in the confessional, well, then I can say, okay, maybe you're dealing with perfection there, right? But you're dealing with another human being. But what we fail to recognize, and I heard this on the radio going to work one day through the psychological community, they were doing a report on a study, and they were saying one of the most healthy aspects of the Catholic Church, now this is the secular world talking, not the religious world, this wasn't a religious study, right? The secular world was saying one of the healthiest things about the Catholic Church is the fact that we have the sacrament, right, of reconciliation. I forgot to talk about this earlier, and that we can, it's like garbage day, right? Talk about what it is that's burdening us to another human being, and that there's another human being in the context of us even, receiving God's graces in this moment, right? Another human being saying the words, you are forgiven. The psychological healing is immense. So the secular world and the spiritual world, the sacred world collide here, and they're working for the same purpose, recognizing the human condition needs this. And likewise, when you are ill, the sacrament of the sick, it helps you. it may not heal you. We're all going to die at some point. We're going to die from something. But receiving the sacrament of sick can help you find that strength and courage to face whatever it is you're facing. Whether it is those moments from now to the end or now to healing. We're not sure all the time, right? And so that encounter with having the priest come to us and offer us this beautiful gift, another human voice speaking to us in our time of need, offering comfort and allowing us to purge what is burdening us, is amazing. Amazing. Who else offers this? Right? And I don't know if you visited a hospital recently. Boy, to have that priest wandering the halls, coming into rooms to offer that care and that support to people is just such an amazing gift. That's the beauty of our church, right? Yeah, we'll talk about the brokenness another time, but what's good about the church is fantastic. The good things that are good are really good. And so the church offers us this journey, this sacramental journey from birth to death. The church is with us and everything in between. It's offering what the human condition needs in this earthly journey, right? And so just to wrap up this talk on sacraments, what I failed to talk about earlier too was that, we have the capital S sacraments and we have the small s sacraments. The formality of the sacraments, the capital S, sacraments are the 7 sacraments. But the small s sacraments are just as important. It's what we do from the day to day, right? And it's what I talked about earlier. We receive Eucharist, but then we go out and be Eucharist. We turn Eucharist from a noun into a verb. And when we turn Eucharist into a verb, and we actually go out there and be Eucharist, it's that small s sacrament. We're having a sacramental experience. We're becoming sacrament to somebody else without the formality of the church and the priest being there. We become agents of sacrament. And that's amazing. To recognize that, to accept that, to own that, and to become that, right? So being Catholic is really, there's just so many beautiful gifts to that. And so I think it's important for us to recognize that, to continue to journey with that, and to continue to grow with that, right? And there's another, I think I failed to say earlier, but when I was talking about Eucharist, it's transubstantiation. I think that's why I forget to say it's like saying cinnamon. I have a hard time saying some words, but that process of consecration of the Eucharist into the body of Christ and the wine into the blood of Christ. So that's the formal word for that consecration. What happens, that in it stays in the physical. It remains as a host and wine, but it's been it's now the body and blood of Christ, right? So it's important to know these things. I'll type out the word when I'm posting this, so you can try to pronounce it for yourself. And so that's my little addition to what I forgot to say in the first video. I hope it all helps. Peace.